The Council, please be upstanding for the Worshipful, the Mayor of Gedling.
Could you please remain standing while my chaplain says prayers for the Holocaust Day, because it's something today which we must never forget, and then we must always remember that we treat people with respect.
Thank you. This evening we gather to remember the victims of the Holocaust and to promise to fight against prejudice, hatred and discrimination. Together we pay our respects to the 6 million Jews and millions of others who were murdered by the Nazis during the Holocaust. We remember the victims and the survivors, and we pay tribute to those who risked their lives to protect and save others. Their experiences serve as a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of hatred, prejudice, and discrimination. We must never forget the atrocities that occurred during the Holocaust. And we must use Holocaust Memorial Day as a reminder to continue the fight against all forms of hate and prejudice in our own communities. We must work together to build a society where diversity is celebrated and where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. So I call on all members of the Council and all residents of Gedling to do everything in your power to promote tolerance and understanding in our community. Together we can make a difference and ensure that the lessons of the Holocaust are never forgotten. So please join me in observing a moment's silence in honour of the victims of the Holocaust. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to say?
Yep. Yes, so the Mayor has asked me to offer a short thought for the day. It is short, it's just 2 sides of A4, just to manage expectations. So good evening, everyone, and let me wish you all a belated Happy New Year. Now, we say the words Happy New Year, and we mean them, I think. We sincerely wish those around us health and prosperity. But at the same time, we know that for all our well-meaning sentiments, 2023 will not be happy for everyone, nor will it be happy all of the time. Can you imagine 365 days of unrelenting, undiluted happiness? In fact, as Fred Astaire sang back in 1936, there may actually be trouble ahead. The song warns us that one day we may be without the moon, humming a different tune, and then there may be teardrops to shed. Sounds a bit bleak, but it's true. We know that along with music, love, and romance, there's a cost of living crisis. war and conflict, that there will be daily challenges, and for some, there will be terminal diagnoses. So what should we do? Face the music and dance? Well, for me, December was one of those moonless months when the music stopped and teardrops were shed. My mum had a fall that led to a stroke that changed her life forever. And I'm sure that we all have our own stories of when suddenly, out of the blue, the existential rug was pulled out from under our feet, rudely reminding us that life can be both beautiful and brutal. So, with 341 more days left of this year, how should we approach it? Head in the sand? Fervent prayer? Fingers crossed? Busy, busy, busy? Eating and drinking for tomorrow we die? Cowering under the duvet? Or with a stiff drink? Or all of the above? Well, at St. Paul's, we've been contemplating the power of peace for helping us navigate the ever-shifting dynamics of our existence. We're not talking about passive peace, like receiving a great big cosmic hug from the universe. We're talking about purposeful peace that recognises that the less we focus on ourselves and the more we serve others, the more peace we generate within us and around us. There's so much in life that we can't control and that we don't know, but we trust, based on our experience, that serving and living well for others is a source of peace. Although facing the moonlight and dancing is not a bad strategy either, and stiff drinks have their place too. Anyway, that's a very long-winded way of saying that I wish you all a peaceful and purposeful 2023. As always, I recognise that prayer isn't for everyone, but please feel free to add your amen if my prayer resonates with you. Let's pray. Loving God, at the start-ish of this new year, I pray that the council, individually and collectively, would cultivate the purposeful peace that comes from serving others, and that enables them to find meaning and direction in all of their endeavours, come what may. And we pray particularly for Mayor Peter Barnes as he soon steps back from his civic duties after years of purposeful service. We wish him much peace and happiness. Amen. Amen.
Jackie's not going to stay. She's got a little problem down looking after her mother, so thanks very much for coming, Jackie. And give my regards to your mother, please. Thank you. Item 2, apologies, please. Can I ask the business manager for any apologies, please? Councillor Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Boyle, Councillor Hollingsworth, Councillor Pearson, and apologies for lateness from Councillor Lawrence, who he's arrived, but he was delayed by public transport, but he's got here in time. But thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Elwood, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Duncan and apologies from Councillor Towser-Hinton. Thank you.
Councillor Sam Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Greensmith, who's going to be late.
Thank you very much. Mayor's announcements. Can I just say, it's been, first of all, I want to wish everybody a very happy Christmas and a peaceful New Year, because we've not seen a lot of members since before Christmas. We was a bit rough over Christmas. We was poorly for about 2 or 3 weeks, so we're just about back to normal now. So I wish everybody a pleasant and a peaceful New Year now we started the year off. Things aren't going as well as we should like to be, but we have to put up with them as they are. So thank you very much. We haven't had a lot of business since Christmas. We went to a very, very, very interesting day on Saturday. We had the Chinese New Year Day, and the children was absolutely fantastic. And what a display they did put on for the people in Gedling. And we must have been best part of 300 or 400 people outside there with the children. So it was absolutely wonderful. Basically, that's about all we've done. Although we had a special day just before Christmas. We went to see a lady who just moved from Bestwood Village into a care home in the city, who was 100 years old, and she was absolutely fantastic. She got all the marbles, and she was absolutely brilliant. She was really, really a nice lady, and she remembers Dennis Beeston, which we've got something on him tonight. So she remembered Dembo, as we all knew him as, and she was really, really nice lady. So that's basically all our civic duties we've done, apart from coming here this evening. So thank you very much. Item 4, apologies. Approve the minutes of the last meeting on the 16th of November. Councillor Clark. Okay, seconder, please. Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Thank you very much. No abstentions, so we're okay there. Declarations of interest, please. None. Thank you. Petitions.
None received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Items questions asked under the Public Order Act procedure. Any questions, Mike?
None received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Item 8, questions asked by members of the under procedure rule 7.9. Have we any questions, please? Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I have a question which I'd like to read out. In view of the ongoing Green Lung project at the Digby Park Arboretum, can the portfolio holder confirm when work will start on the resurfacing of the footpath to the rear of Linsdale Gardens, Neaton Close, and what measures will be put in place to alleviate flooding into the rear gardens of nearby residential properties? Thank you.
First of all, can I thank Councillor Elwood for the question. It gives me an opportunity to fill in some of the gaps regarding the Green Lung project that has been happening since last year at least. So there was a capital budget allocated to support the Green Lung and form part of the manifesto for this council. It's broken down into 4 stages. So it might be useful to go through the stages, which should then hopefully fully answer Councillor Elwood's question. Stage 1 started in 2022, it's continuing into this year, involved the woodland planting at Digby Park and the launch of the Digby Park Arboretum with the QR code identification and information and a route map that locates the variety of trees that have been planted. This will include the positioning of new bins, benches and panels. This is due for installation in this year, hopefully in the spring, I would imagine, depending on the weather situation at the moment. As you know, it's quite wet. Stage 2 takes place, or begins in this year and carries on through to next year, involves the path resurfacing, drainage improvements to prevent flooding, and a washout of the path and cycleway at the foot of the golf course near Neaton Close and Linsdale Gardens. For those of you that know the area, or maybe don't know the area, it falls at the bottom of Mapley Golf Course, which is a natural flood dropping point. When the water table is extremely high, as it is at the moment, the 2 roads, Linsdale Gardens and Neaton Close, become swamped with water. It's a bit of a flood area, really. And so the question is a valid one and one that's always going to be difficult to fully answer in terms of the weather situation we have at the moment. We have very wet winters now. So the issues are probably very pertinent to the people who live in that area, and hopefully I can answer some of the questions regarding the drainage. Stage 3 is the installation of a link path that will lead from Arnold Lane on the new Keepworth development, and that's funded by Keepmoat, to pick up from the Digby Park cycleway and walking path at the intersection where it meets Arnold Lane across the estate into Collier Way. Obviously, some of the green lung is being completed now on the completion of the GAR, so those pathways into Gedling Country Park will carry on through. Stage 4, which is 2024 onwards, the installation of a link path from Collier Way across the GAR that will link the path infrastructure to Gedling Country Park near the methane extraction plant. This being the last stage of the Green Lung route project, and will be completed sometime in 24, obviously weather dependent. There will be further tree planting and establishment of a bee pollinator grassland in the grassland meadows for these areas as development continues. This will eventually allow cyclists and walkers from Colton to travel to the country park along a green lung or a green way without the use of a vehicle, obviously apart from if you want to cycle there. The Council Engineering Officer, John Evans, is currently drawing up some drainage designs for the path near Neaton Close to divert water away from the properties on the close. Due diligence surveys are being carried out in advance of the tender preparation. Tenders should be invited in spring 2023 and installation work commence in the summer of this year. Following the path and following the resurfacing and reinstatement of the pathways that lead on to those lead on from the golf course to the the properties we've mentioned. It is hoped that the weather, labour and materials permitting the work will be complete by the winter of 23/24. So it's quite an important development, and the Green Lung I think is a very important positive initiative and project for Gedling. Simply from a point of view of health, people being able to walk, cycle from Colton all the way to Gedling Country Park. So, any questions?
Councillor Elwell, any other questions, Councillor Elwell, please?
I don't think so, no. That was very comprehensive, Councillor McCrossan. So, yes, thank you very much for that information. That's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pay policy statement, recommendation on Council on page 13. Councillor Clark, please. Councillor Payne.
Seconded the recommendation, Mr. Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Would anyone like to speak? No? Do you want to close, Michael, John? Oh, sorry.
Councillor Adams.
Councillor Adams, sorry, I couldn't catch you.
It's all right, it wasn't your fault. I didn't hear you, Mayor. So yeah, just to say thank you very much to the work that's gone into this statement, and a lot of work, as we know, goes into these items. So I just wanted to put on record our thanks from our group for putting that work in, and we really appreciate what's been done. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on this item? No, thank you then. All in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Next one, isn't it? Item 10, reduction scheme. Recommendation on page 83. Councillor Clark to move,
Payne.
please.
Councillor Payne.
Councillor Payne, beg your pardon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As you said, the recommendation is on page 83 of the pack. This is a report that will be familiar to council members. This report seeks approval from full council to continue the current council tax reduction scheme, colloquially known as the CTRS, without revision except for the annual uprating and amendments of allowances and premiums in line with the housing benefit levels for the next financial year 2023-24. Council tax legislation requires that the council must decide each year whether its CTRS is to remain the same or to be revised for the following financial year. The decision in this instance must be made by the 11th of March 2023, but can be made before then, hence it being before us tonight. By way of background to the scheme, localising council tax support was introduced as part of the welfare system reforms by the then coalition government in 2012 and replaced the council tax benefit scheme. The government set the scheme for all pensioners and continues to do so to this day. However, councils were free to implement their own scheme for claimants of working age. Effectively, what happened at that point, Mr Mayor, was that the government pulled the rug from under working age. People no longer said that it was going to fund protection for working age people and instead left it down to local taxpayers to decide how they would protect working age claimants from effectively a plus 20% slash in the funding that they were receiving to support them with council tax payments. This council, under this Labour administration, agreed its first council tax reduction scheme, and there were opponents in this chamber to it at the time, CTRS, in December 2012 for the 2013-14 financial year, with only a few changes to the previous council tax benefit scheme. That's right, this Labour administration protected those working age claimants that the government at the time turned its back on, to ensure that the claimants were largely protected and continued to receive the same level of support from this council. The scheme has not changed, something I am incredibly proud of, and something members of this council, particularly members from the ruling administration, should be incredibly proud of, apart from being uprated each year in line with most welfare schemes. The aim of the scheme is to protect the most financially vulnerable households, and with the downturn in the economy and the cost of living crisis that rages on, this Labour administration thinks it's even more important now than ever to maintain this scheme at the maximum level than ever before. The report does set out a number of options that have been considered, a question that's been asked by elected members previously, for changes to the scheme in context of making financial savings for this council. Clearly, Mr Mayor, the option which generates the biggest single saving is where everyone currently receiving full council tax reduction would pay 20% of their council tax liability, or to put it another way, a fifth of what they were liable in their bill. This would generate a saving for Gedling Borough Council in the region of £89,500. But, Mr Mayor, it would impact on 3,900 low-income households across every single elected member's ward in this chamber. This means that a household in an average Band A property in a non-parished area of our borough who currently has a zero council tax charge would have to start paying £288 per year, or £5.54 per week. These types of households would also have been the hardest hit by the welfare reforms and by the ongoing cost of living crisis that this government is failing to get a grip on, and are the ones most likely to not be able to afford to pay. To add even more financial strain on families, non-payment could also mean extra recovery costs for the council being incurred, such as magistrates' court costs, enforcement agents' compliance, and enforcement fees. Other councils that have made similar changes to their scheme have reported increased non-payment of council tax and more recovery action, resulting in the need for more staffing resource. This could easily mean that any savings made by the council from a change to the scheme could be cancelled out. It is therefore recommended to the council that the current CTRS council tax reduction scheme continues 100% support unchanged for 2023-24 to help those 3,900 families across our borough, which is in line with the assumptions made in the council's medium-term financial plan and puts us, Mr Mayor, proudly in one of less than a handful of councils in this country that continues to provide 100% support to the most financially vulnerable in their area. I move the report.
Anybody would like to comment? Councillor Adams, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, happy to support the residents in the borough with full support of the council tax policy in line with the existing policy. It is incredibly important as the economy recovers, and luckily the recession figures recently have shown that it's not quite as bad as purported originally, and inflation has begun to drop. So hopefully things are heading in the right direction. Difficult decisions still remain. And although it is still high, this is a welcome move, and it's incredibly important that we do continue to support our residents during this difficult time. Thank you.
Councillor Elwell, I'm sorry, I didn't catch you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As in previous years, myself as tonight the sole Liberal Democrat councillor, I'm happy to support the council tax reduction scheme. As Councillor Payne reiterates, it actually ameliorates the unfair nature of the council tax. I mean, as a tax, it is an unfair tax, but at least with this scheme, it does ameliorate the worst effects of it. So I'm happy to support that tonight. Thank you.
Any other, please? No? Councillor Payne to close.
Now, and I'll just say this, I don't think now is any time for cheering about the position the economy is in. Real terms, salaries in Gedling are down since December 2019. The weekly shop is up, energy bills are up, the cost of filling the petrol tank is up, mortgage rates are up. And when I speak to residents across this borough, they certainly don't feel like it's time for a party about the shape that this country's economy or our local economy is in. That is why it is precisely right that we should defend, protect, uphold the protection for the 3,900 families that this administration has been proud to do since 2013.
Thank you very much, Councillor Payne. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Any against? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 11. Parent, I leave the policy for the council. This is a recommendation on page 97. Councillor Clark, please.
Yeah, I move the recommendation, Mr Mayor. I hope everybody's seen it. We're trying to help out again, as we did in the previous item. So I'll move that.
Councillor Payne.
Seconded and reserved right to speak.
Anyone would like to speak on this motion, please? Councillor Elliott, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We all know that local government's got a problem, a diversity problem. If you look at the most recent survey done of local councillors back in 2019, less than 14.8% of local councillors were under 45 and 42.9% were over 45, compared with the total population of the UK, where 73% were of working age under 65. And this means that we struggle with getting people, especially young women and people of BAME backgrounds, to stand and represent our community. Yes, we can represent every member of our community, but we do not have the lived experiences of people of different backgrounds. I can hear racism and hate it, but I will never truly know the sheer feeling of someone who is having that thrown at them. So this policy is a move to make being a local council more attractive to those of childbearing age, which will mainly be women, but we must remember this policy also includes paternity leave and adoptive leave. I personally have known councillors who have left being local councillors because of being pregnant or wanting to become pregnant and feeling they did not have the support of their council to do so and that they were better off out of it. We look at our own council and 4 people in our council are aged 35 and under. Now, I say I personally don't feel this policy is goes far enough, but we cannot let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I hope, though, that it will be taken into account that there have been councillors in councils that had maternity policies who still faced harassment and abuse for taking up that policy. And as I say, I hope this results in more people of working age and younger who choose to become parents standing for the council, and we are able to have a wider amount of voices on the council, a wider range of lived experiences, and it makes the council more diverse and generally more... Sorry, the word has completely gone from my mind. But makes us a better place for our diversity. Thank you.
Anybody else, please? No? Thank you very much. We'll go show. All in favour, please show. Any against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Item 12, question by the member concerning any matter dealt with by Executive Committee, Procurement 710. Thank you. Any questions, please? No? All in favour? Thank you. Comments on item 13 under procedure 711?
None received, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I will move the next item. Special meeting. Oh, I've missed one out. Sorry. Non-pecuniary interest, Mr Mayor. Thank you. Mike? Oh, item 14. Motion. Under proceedings 712.
No motions received, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone attending the meeting. It's item, so we'll close the meeting and start the special meeting. Thank you. Apologies. None? Are we going to use the same thing then? It's a special meeting now we're talking about. So, there's no apology, I assume. So that's right. Thank you for next item. Oh, no, there we go.
We'll use the apologies from the previous meeting.
Yeah, we're going to use the apologies from the previous meeting, so that's okay. Item 2. Anyone, any declaration of interest? Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to declare an interest in item 3, which is the conferment of the title of Honorary Alderman of the Borough for Councillor Beeston, MBE, at which point I think I need to leave the meeting. Thank you.
Councillor
Myself, yes, for item 6. Thank you.
Item 3, to consider confirmation of the title Honorary Alderman of the Borough Council, Councillor Dennis Beeson. Councillor Clark to move. Oh, Councillor Payne, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to propose the conferment of the title of Honorary Alderman of the Borough of Gedling on Councillor Dennis, formerly Councillor Dennis Beeston, MBE, posthumously. Councillor Dennis Beeston was first elected to Bestwood Park Ward in 1983, winning 52.7% share of the vote at the time. He represented the residents of Bestwood Village and latterly Bestwood St Albans Ward as a Gedling Borough Councillor for 36 years. He was a long-serving chair of Bestwood Parish Council and a local school governor. He was honoured with an MBE from Prince Charles in 2009 in recognition of his service to the community. And during this time, he demonstrated, I think, and I'm sure many will agree across this chamber, the very best of distinguished public service, tirelessly championing the cause of the place he was so proud to call home. And you referenced tonight, Mr Mayor, people who still fondly remember his service. His fierce commitment to the values of social justice, fairness, and his trademark courtesy, which I think people across this chamber, across party, would recognise, and his grace were a reflection of Dennis's selfless and compassionate nature. He really was one of society's true gentlemen. We miss him dearly. We lost him on the 16th of January a few years ago. And I think it's quite right, Mr Mayor, that we put right a wrong and that former councillor Dennis Beeston, MBE, for his 36 years service to this council, but his many decades of service to Bestwood Village and the residents of Bestwood Village and wider Gedling Borough was recognised. I've spoken to immediate members of Dennis Beeston's family, including his daughter Ginny, to request that this was the appropriate thing for council to do before suggesting this. They were absolutely delighted that Dennis was going to be recognised in this way and hope that the council supports the conferment of the title this evening. And I'd also just like to, while I am at the podium, Mr Mayor, extend my heartfelt wishes, and I hope the whole council's heartfelt wishes, to Dennis's wife, Alice, who has been incredibly ill recently, and sadly, because of how ill she is, I wasn't able to have this conversation with her. She's suffering from dementia and has been incredibly poorly in hospital and had to go through an operation. And Ginny expressed to me, Dennis's daughter, when I spoke to her on the phone, just how delighted, and I know just how delighted Alice would have been to know that this was being suggested on Dennis's behalf tonight. So my best wishes and heartfelt thoughts to Alice as well, Mr Mayor. I move that we confer the title of posthumous honorary alderman of the Borough of Gedling on Dennis Beeston.
Mr Mayor, reserve the right to speak.
Anybody would like to say anything, please? Sandra Barnes, please. Councillor Sandra Barnes, sorry.
Thank you. That's all right. I'll let you off. I'd just like to say Dennis was well respected in his ward. Everybody knew him as Dembo, and I think it's a fitting tribute to him.
Anybody else? I would like to say a few words because I'm probably the only member alive on this council who was there when Dembo first got on all those years ago. And he's quite a character, Dembo was. He used to like to go on the horses, he liked to pint, and he liked to chat. And he was a really down-to-earth councillor then. Dennis knew what it was like at the working face. He worked down Gedling Pit Bestwood Pit for a long, long time. He was a character in the village, and he was well respected in that village. In fact, me and Sandy went to see an old lady who was 100 a few weeks ago, and she just moved out of the village into a nursing home in Rice Park, and she remembers Dembo. Everybody knew him as Dembo. He was never Councillor Beeson, he was always Dembo, and that's how he liked to be remembered. And I think personally, this is a real honour to Dembo because he was quite a character, a good local councillor, different to what we are today. Dennis wouldn't have bothered with all this technology. Dennis would knock on your door and come and talk to you, and this is what Dembo used to do. Thank you very much. Councillor Lawrence, you comment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm still alive.
Just.
Because I was on the council when he first joined. I just wanted to share one memory of Dennis. I remember going canvassing with him some years ago. It was a blinding hot day, and most of us were dressed in appropriate clothes. He had a suit on and was sweating like mad. As we walked down the road, he said to me, "I don't do this." And I said, "Don't do what?" He says, "I don't," because we were canvassing. "I don't canvass." He says, "I just go into the clubs. That's where I get my votes." I'm sure there's a lot of us would like to do that and not have go canvassing, especially in inclement weather, but also in very hot weather. So that's one memory I have of Dennis.
Anybody else? Councillor Feeney?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I remember Dennis quite often here for a long time that I was working with him. He was always a very honourable and honest person and obviously knew where he stood with him, but I also dealt with him in my main job when he used to complain about bus services in the area, and I obviously write and answer his letters, but he also was prolific in writing letters. I know lots of other companies and City Council as well, which he wasn't even part of it, actually wrote his letters, and he obviously had the old handwritten letter, no computers, no nothing, and he was really, everybody knew him as a very hard-working, very devout councillor, and that was what we should all aspire to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly would like to support this, and I believe also my co-councillor, Councillor Gibbons would. Dennis was very supportive to us when we were first elected, and he spoke great words of wisdom. And I think Councillor Lawrence, I caught a flavour of his style of being a councillor, because when I first visited the welfare, his seat was pointed out to me. That was where Dennis used to sit, and people knew where to find him, and that's what they would do. So thank you very much.
Councillor Barnfather, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I still want to stand up. I'm sorry, I know I was supposed to sit down because of the cameras, but it never feels quite right. I'm delighted to see this recognition of Dennis. Posthumous awards, I may have a slight question mark over, but as to an award to Dennis Beeston, I've got no question marks whatsoever. I had the pleasure of working alongside Dennis in Bestwood Village for many years as the county councillor, as he was the district councillor and the chair of the parish council. And I'd attend parish council meetings, and Dennis would ask me to fill in some of the gaps, shall I say, in relation to issues in the village. If the clerk, because it was never the clerk, if the clerk couldn't answer the question, Chris, can you help me out here? Chris, can you... and Dennis was a fantastic character. In fact, he made me an honorary member. I don't think there's such an official position at Bestwood Parish Council, but he made me an honorary member of the parish council, so that I didn't just have permission to speak within the normal sort of members' reports or 15 minutes of public speaking, but that I could come in at any time on any issue at his request. Dennis put politics to one side. He was never a Labour councillor, a mere Conservative councillor. We were simply two elected members representing the residents of Bestwood Village to the best of our abilities and in the best interest of those residents. Dennis was the sort of guy who he walked out the house in the morning, and the minute he left his front door, he was that elected member. He would see lamps that weren't lit, he would see holes in the road, he would see bins that had not been collected, and he would be on the phone. He'd be on. His emails were legendary because they were one-liners. You know, Dennis didn't do comprehensive emails. It would be a one-line to me, Chris, boom, 6 words, and he'd expect me to do something about it, and where possible, I did. Dennis was a fantastic servant to the residents of Bestwood Village, a fantastic servant to this council. I know a lot of people still miss him. Can I say, when I attend Bestwood Parish Council now, I still expect to see him there. I still miss him. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else, please? No? Michael, to close. John?
No, I'll save it for tonight.
Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Thank you very much. And no abstentions, is there? No, no, thank you. To consider... Yeah, management again. Consider conference title of honorary freeman to the Borough Council of Bob Sampson. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate this is taken some time to bring here. It is catch-up time. It's nearing the end of term, and we would like to see this done. I think there ought to be more of it across the borough, across the county, and across the country. Recognise people, not just for what they've done locally. If you look at Bob Sansom, or Robert Sansom, if we're using his Sunday name, the amount he's got it. I know we sometimes get frustrated with the lorries across the road, which, you know, you can't get in, and Maria will come in and she'll say, I've told them off again. So some lorry drivers had an earwigging or whatever because of that. But if you think that's grown out of Arnold, I think there are 50 depots, something like that, across this country, has supplied work for people, for families of this borough. And on the other side, which we will be giving this for, is for charitable work. And I know Jenny's not here tonight, but she no doubt mentioned on the actual night is the amount of work he did and does in the field of charity for the Rotary Club of Carlton, etc. So a great pleasure in moving that Robert Sanson be moved for Honorary Freeman of the Borough, and to urge other people right the way across this council, the new council, whatever, that we do this. COVID's got in the way of this, without a doubt, like it's got in the way of a lot of things, and we really ought to look. I mean, I was fortunate, honoured to be, to get the MBE, and it is a privilege, and it's a privilege not only for your family but for the people that you work with for all those years. And I think we should be doing more of it across the country. We're one of the few people through Gedling Awards, and you see that on this chamber on a regular basis, one of the few councils that do anything like that across the country, that recognise local people for what they have done and what they've contributed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just echo what the leader says. I mean, Bob stewarded one of the most exemplary businesses in this borough over the last few decades, and certainly probably the most outstanding, if not, the most outstanding business in Arnold. Significant investment in our borough, significant investment in Arnold, many, many jobs provided, but actually over and above the business, over and above the jobs provided, over and above the investment, has, as the leader says, supported numerous mayors with charitable donations, but actually over and above charitable donations to the mayor, has gone beyond that, provided charitable donations to organisations, community organisations, right out across the borough, including close work with the Rotarians, as Councillor Clark says, but also quietly behind the scenes has provided funding and support for many and many environmental projects that this council has delivered, and actually not just in this administration. I remember having conversations with cabinet members in previous administrations when Roland Spencer was the leader and support was provided by Bob. And you can go to a number of events at the borough and just see Bob quietly in the background there in support. The Pride of Gedling Awards, another fantastic example of recognising local heroes that Bob and by extension Frank Key have supported. So I think this is absolutely appropriate. Conferring the title of Honorary Freeman is about people who have rendered eminent services to the borough, and Bob Sampson has certainly done that, and in my view, as the leader said, he's absolutely deserving of this award. It has my wholehearted support.
Thank you, mate. Anybody else, please? Sandra?
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate that he was a great help to a lot of mayors. He did help a lot of mayors, because it's very hard when you're the mayor to try and get money for charity. And he was always there. If ever anybody asked him, he was there. He was a great community man.
I would like to say a few words, because I've known him since he's been with Frank. I still call it Frank Keys, because as kids, it was always Frank Keys on Portland Street. And when he took over Frank Key, he's made that into second to none business in the county now. I mean, you go around the county and you all see Frank Key's lorries and the shops they've got, the business they've got. But apart from that, for a good businessman, he's a very, very nice man, and he's a very generous man. We went to the Arnold Hill School a few years ago, and he was there with his wife, and he contributed quite a lot of cash to the schools in this borough. And I think he not just do his work, he spends it on the community, and he's a very, very worthwhile honour we provided for him tonight. I think it's absolutely fantastic what we're doing for him. Thank you very much. Anybody else? John?
That's it. Thank you.
Anybody against? No, they can't be. Thank you very much. Carried unanimous. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. This is another one which I'm very pleased with. Councillor Clark, again, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Similar to what I'd said, earlier, the delay has been caused. It should have been done many years ago. James Mellors is a person who lives only, I think, about a mile and a half from here, has provided, again, employment, not only for this area, but for the city. Everything that you see that they do and always say, oh, it's blooming Muller's lot again and they've got the square or whatever, you know, they've provided tremendous amount of work and all the things, talk about made in England, it ought to be stamped on his head. Everything is made, all those things you see in the city, all the things he brings to us every now and then, all the things you see in other places is actually made locally. A lot in this area, in the Arnold area. But it's beyond that we need to look at. Again, similar to Bob, is the charitable work. This is a man that is self-made, who's really got down to business, but the quiet, quite loud sometimes, you know, because he comes from a strong background, actually does his charity work without saying anything. And I was pleased to see last year when and I think Rachel saw it and other people, the amount of people that he transported off to, because they are very wealthy, there's no admission on that, but you know, in the company of that person, you wouldn't think that. But I think it was about 200 children went from this area to a day at the seaside. That's not just one thing, it's the other things that go off quietly but effectively contributing. And I think it needs to be recognised. As a borough citizen, the whole of the family live in our borough, which is, you know, which is quite pleasing. But the work, and we will bring more to, you know, to the actual night, to honour a person there that I say will go along, quietly do the business, but again, like a lot of the people, and I can name a lot of people that live in our borough that do loads and loads of work and contribute to this, and you can always guarantee that somebody is going to give you some help. But I think one of the biggest things to me is to see and I've seen it several years, the shine on the faces of children that will never get a cat-in-house chance of ever seeing the seaside, the countryside, having a tea party or something like that, because it's not in their family fabric. They've never seen it. They've never seen the love that is given out by the people that he pays for. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The leader said, over and above James's work in terms of their business, I've seen first-hand his work as president of the Showman's Guild several years running, where he has vociferously argued for the protection and improvement of rights of show people in not just this county, but this country. And we are home in this great county to one of the best, if not the best, goose fair in Europe, if not around the world. And he's been at the forefront of arguing for the protection of those rights, the improvement of those rights against councils, lobbying mayors, council leaders, chief executives, MPs, government ministers, as well as the leader said, providing significant amounts of funding to charity and supporting individual events that this borough's put on. Not just the Winter Wonderland that we saw this year in Nottingham City, but actually the festive events in certain years that we've put on in this borough. He is proud to call the borough home. He still lives in Red Hill, in the local community where he's lived for many decades. He is proud of his working class roots. He has made sure that the success that he has gained from his business has been shared out amongst the community that he's proud to call home. And his two sons, who now form part of the business, James Jr. and Edward, are both also proud to call Gedling home. And it's not just work with show people and with fairs, it's work with the Ministry of Defence, it's work with other businesses in Nottingham, in Nottinghamshire, in Gedling. It's work with central government that they've been doing in recent years as well. So I think this is a fantastic success story of somebody who's got working class roots in the local community, who's proud to call Gedling their home, who's contributed significantly to the life of Gedling. I'm certainly proud to work alongside him, and I think he's very, very deserving of this honour.
Anybody else, please? Councillor Barnes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, another man who's just a great community person. He has helped lots of families. He's been terrific with mayors, and also he's always done a disabled day on the beach down in town. So I thank him very much because I think he's just great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to endorse what's already been said. I won't repeat it, but I think perhaps it's indicative of how he goes about what he does. This last summer, when 4 coaches took families to the seaside. He simply turned up, driving a van, opened the back doors, and inside were crates of bottled water and fruit and pack up. And he rolled his sleeves up and he just started hauling these items into the coaches. Obviously, people piled in to help, but that's what he did. He didn't come for any particular acknowledgement. He just wanted to make sure they got the water, they got the food, and they had a brilliant day. Thank you.
I would just like to say a few, because I've known James quite a long time now. I've had one or two sort of sessions where we've had a few pints together and we've had a good chat together, but he's always the same guy. He don't change. A leopard don't change his spots, and that's James. He's always been said what he means. He'll argue like the bloody like the hell to you, but he's a genuine bloke. You know where you stand with him. A spade's a spade, and he'll say what he did. But not just that, he works for the community. I mean, this year, like Rachel said, 5 busloads of kids went from Arnold. We went to see him off the Skegness. There was a packed lunch for them. There was a drink on the coach, and then they got a free ticket to go around the arcades and the fun fair all day at Skegness, and then there was a meal on the way back. He's an absolutely, really, really nice guy, and they are really a very nice family. So I think this is a real honour which James deserves. Thank you very much. John, to close.
Thanks for your comments, and we'll await the vote.
All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. I will now leave the chamber because you've got to do something else which I'm not involved in. Thank you very much for your attendance, and I'll leave it to you now. Thank you very much.
Right, I think it's clear now. This is item 6, to consider the conferment of the title of Honorary Freeman of the Borough of Gedling on Peter Barnes. I just want to say that I'm really pleased to be able to do this. Peter's given 49 years of service both to the community and Daybrook in particular, so I'm really pleased to be able to put this forward. Councillor Payne to move, I believe.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I have great honour I should have declared an interest actually at the start of today's meeting, because I have absolutely no shame in saying, I've said in this chamber before, Peter's one of my very best friends, not only in the Labour group, but on this council, and I'm very, very proud to call him a close friend. And I have absolute honour in proposing that we confer the title of Honorary Freeman of the Borough of Gedling on Councillor Peter Barnes, our current Mayor. He was first elected, Madam Deputy Mayor, as you just said, nearly 50 years ago to Oxclose Ward, winning 55.2% of the vote. Conferring the title of Honorary Freeman of the Borough is the highest honour that the Council can bestow, and it's for people who have rendered eminent services to the Borough. And I don't need to tell people in this chamber who've served on this Council a lot longer than I have what Peter has done for not only this Council, but for the good people of this borough. He has been numerous times our mayor and raised significant money for charity, including children who have suffered from cancer, including people who have had serious brain injuries, bought world-leading pioneering equipment as a result of the money that he has raised and driven forward while he was mayor, alongside his partner in crime, or management, as he calls her, Sandra. They are a duo, they are a team. They have been absolutely outstanding for this borough. As Chris and others in this chamber will know, he's also served as the chairman of Nottinghamshire County Council. And I think everybody in the County Council chamber who served at the same time as him, who I've spoken to, and Mel Shepherd was here early this evening, really enjoyed his time as chairman of the county council. As we've seen this year, Madam Deputy Mayor, he's even-handed, he's fair, he's firm with people. He's been firm with me at times when I've stepped over the line in his role as mayor. And he brings a sense of jovial fun, I think, to the idea of service. You get what you see with Peter. I said earlier that Councillor Dennis Beeston was one of life's few and rare gentlemen, and Peter Barnes is a gentleman. He's got traditional old-fashioned values: integrity, honesty, decency, friendship. He just wants to do best by people and by the residents that he serves. He was the chairman of our planning committee, and I think I served for a short time while he was chairman of the planning committee under this administration, and he always served with distinction when he was in that role. He was a cabinet member under this current administration for the environment and drove forward significant service improvements. But he's perhaps most deserving, I think, of this award for this reason. 50 unrivalled years, half a century service to the people of Daybrook, to the people of Arnold, and to the people of the wider Gedling Borough. And he has never, ever, ever, in spite of his partisan loyalties, lost sight of service before self. He is Mr. Daybrook, he is Mr. Arnold, he is in many, many ways Mr. Gedling Borough. The one thing I would say to him, if he was sat where you were now, Madam Deputy Mayor, is what would the 1970s member of the International Marxist Group think of you with your red robes and your chains and your lace collar on, Peter, nowadays as mayor of the borough? He's less radical now than he was in the early 70s when he was elected. He's much more moderate, but he's never, ever lost sense of his true values, which he's trying to, we say, don't we, in this chamber, serving people, improving lives. I think he's been doing that for the last 50 years. And, you know, by God, 50 years of service, where sometimes in a position like this you take some flack. I think he's thoroughly, thoroughly deserving of this award, and I'm very, very proud to move that we confer honorary Freeman on Peter Barnes. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Please.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I thoroughly agree with everything that's been said there. Peter is, I mean, it said Peter, I thought it was B Barnes, because we know what the B stands for, because that's what often his nickname is. Before it, you know, when he likes to, you know, swear every now and then. But yes, it's right. I mean, I represent part of Daybrook and on my county seat, and I know that the warmth and the feeling for Peter is tremendous. And if you think that he's actually raised, along with Sandra, and I know they've been seen eternally in the mayor's chair or whatever, but there were well over £100,000 that's been raised for some really worthy causes, and I think he is a candidate there that deserves this honour, and a local person, as Michael has just said, 50 years, and you know what it's like right the way across here. I mean, have a look at your email box every day. Somebody's having a go at you one way or the other. It's not nice sometimes, but in general, he's stuck with it, and he's carried on to deliver the best to his ability, and I thank him for that. So I will second that. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Anyone else like to speak on this? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. As I said earlier on, I'm still alive, and I got on the council first in 1979. Of course, Peter had already been there for some time, and I think he must be the only person who has served that amount of time on Gedling Borough. And indeed, after the elections on May the 4th, there'll be nobody in this chamber who was a councillor in 79 when he and I and Dennis Beeston later served together. Two things have already been mentioned, which I wasn't sure whether I was going to mention them or not, but as they've been mentioned by both the deputy leader and the leader, because the first time I met Peter was on the way down to a demo in London. I think it was before I got on the council. And yes, he was a member of the IMG, and he may have sold me a paper, I'm not sure. The second is, as the leader have said is what the B stands for. Well, let's not beat about the bush. It stood for bogger. And many a time when he was mayor and outside of mayor, there was a swear box on the desk because that was his favourite saying. And he did often say it in council, although in later years he's been a bit more circumspect. So, you know, all I can say is that he certainly does deserve this honour. And if I get an invite to the ceremony, I'll be able to say these things to his face.
Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Our group has no hesitation in supporting Councillor Barnes in receiving this honour. Personally, I've known Peter most of my life, as him and Sandra actually live opposite my grandparents in Daybrook, and they're friends. But this year, as Peter's been mayor, and I think this is the first time he's been mayor while I've served on the council, I've got to know him even more. I've sat next to him at charity events and as he's been attending them. And at each of them, his pride for Daybrook, his pride for the borough shines through. But the thing that surrounds Sandra and Peter more than anyone I've ever met really is the laughter they bring to every room and the kindness. You know, Sandra, I think, is one of the only councillors left who actually sends handwritten Christmas cards to everyone. And when I see her at events, and Peter, they always send my grandpa a card to let him know how I'm getting on. And I think that's not just for individuals, that's because they're proud of the borough and are proud of all the work, party or none, that do for this borough. There's a few funny stories that I really want to share with you all, which I'll save for the ceremony, but no hesitation in supporting it. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Councillor McCrossan, please.
Just to say, thank you for this. That Peter has been a councillor for 50 years. The energy that you would need and the confidence in your community to be elected year on year is just amazing. The energy, I mean, you know, as mayor, I know how exhausting it is to raise funds. The fact that they've raised nearly £100,000 for charity, and the effort and the energy and the enthusiasm over 50 years is just pretty remarkable. So they're a remarkable couple, and I fully support them.
Is that anybody else to speak? No, thank you. All right, all those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Abstentions? Thank you, that's carried. Right, I say thank you to everyone for attending the meeting. This is the final item, so this will close the special meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's do it, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, please be upstanding for the worship for the Deputy Mayor of Gedling.